There are two principles which we should base what I like to think of as national patriotism. First, to base national patriotism on the most sober and recognition of facts. And second, to proclaim these facts with the most powerful sincerity. And this recognition of those facts discloses at once a whole series of the most important fundamental principles which should guide the patriotism of today and to return our country to greatness. 1. Government and we the people are two identical conceptions. It was only the rich and the aristocratic Republicans who succeeded through falsifying the ideas of democracy and turning it into a question of values, not only in divorcing the idea of democracy from government, but in actually representing them as utterly contradictory. That aim has been in fact achieved. Patriotic nationalism gives an expression to this idea that the identity of these two conceptions. Nationalism means above everything to act with a boundless, all-embracing love for the people, and, if necessary, to die for them. And similarly, patriotism means to so build up the state and the community of the people that every individual act is in the interest of the community of the people and must be, to such an extent, convinced of the goodness and the honorable straightforwardness of this community of people as to be ready to die for it. Not company, not corporation, the wealth of the individual, nor the combined wealth of a foreign aristocracy. 2. There are no such thing as classes. There cannot be. Class means caste, and caste means race. If there are castes in India, well and good. For them, it is possible. So in Egypt, maybe even in Rome. But with us in America, where everyone who is an American at all has the same blood, has the same eyes, speaks with the same language of freedom of mind and spirit, here there can be no class. Here there can be only one single people, and beyond that, nothing. Certainly we recognize, just as everyone and anyone must recognize, that there are different occupations and professions. There are teachers, preachers, doctors, lawyers, common laborers, painters, technicians, engineers, officials. The list of occupation goes on and on. But in the struggles which these our professions have amongst themselves for the equalization of their economic conditions, the conflict and division must never be so great as to tear asunder the ties to and for the people. Thank you. But we must also understand the moral disintegration of our professions. This is pervasive in all the professions in our country today. Doctors more concerned with fees and charges than healing the patient. Lawyers more concerned with the firm profits than justice and equality. Teachers more concerned about raises and test scores than in education. Preachers more concerned with salary and benefits and retirement than sin and moral decay of their flock. No, these divisions of society must go, and the professions must be responsible once again to society as a whole, and not to the greed of their own self-interest. Third, it was clear to us that this particular view of national patriotism is based on an impulse which springs not from our race or any blood relationship, but from our common ancestry of human equality. We have said to ourselves that there are racial differences amongst us, and that we should revel in these differences in our communities, which can clearly trace their relationships to many conceptions of society. But America regards society as a society of acceptance and tolerance, not racial differences, as the foundations of the maintenance of our community must be based on those principles of tolerance and of acceptance. The mega-wealthy regard society as a means of exploitation of other peoples. The mega-wealthy, they never work as a public creator, only with the great aim of becoming the master. They work unproductively, using and enjoying other people's work. The mega-rich destroy, and they must be destroyed because they completely lack the conception of any activity which builds up the life of the community. And therefore, it is really beside the point whether a person who is seen as the part of the mega-wealthy is decent or caring or philanthropic or not. In himself he carries those characteristics which nature has given to him, and he cannot rid himself of those characteristics. And to us, he is harmful. He is dangerous. When he harms us, consciously or unconsciously, makes no difference. We have conscientiously to concern ourselves with the welfare of the people. Fourth, we must be further persuaded that economic prosperity is inseparable from political freedom, and therefore the international mega-wealthy, this house of lies which they have built on a financial system which is stretched across the globe, must immediately collapse. We recognize that freedom can be eternally only the consequence of power, and the source of that power is the will. Consequently, the will to power must be strengthened in a people with passionate ardor. We as American patriots must be on principle the most fervent of nationalists with regard to the direction and the morals of our country. We realize that the state can be for our people a paradise only if we hold sway as the people. We realize that a slave state will never be a paradise, but only and always, for all time, a colony, a hell. We grasp the fact that power, in the last resort, is possible only where there is strength. And strength lies not in the dead weight of numbers, but solely out of energy. Even the smallest minority can achieve a mighty result if they are inspired by the most fiery and the most passionate will to act. World history has always been made by minorities. If one of these truths has realized this, if anyone realizes any of these truths, they are valueless so long as there is lacking the indomitable will to turn this realization into action. Thank you very much. These are the foundations of what I reference to be a new patriotism, the truths on which it is based, and which has demonstrated its necessity.